Welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Danny Cannell. That's Bud Elliott. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and all across the 24/7 Sports Facebook network. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come on in the chat to join us. This is a Monday upon further review episode. We had some significant results late Saturday night that we did not get a chance to really touch on as we were wrapping up our instant reaction. We had several games that we still had to spend our Sunday and Monday morning going back to review. We have college football rankings to discuss and much, much more. But we begin with some of the breaking news from Sunday and on into Monday as Georgia Tech is parting ways with Geoff Collins. But that's not all, because we're also getting athletic director Todd Stansbury out the paint. This is a total upheaval from the president's office at the Georgia Institute of Technology. The Yellow Jackets, which were competing for conference championships in the ACC under Paul Johnson, one of the more consistent programs in the ACC Coastal Division throughout that sort of division play era, which is coming to an end this year. They've been woeful under Collins. He came in, said he was going to move the offense away from the option attack. That offense has never finished better than 10th in the ACC. He said he was going to be this recruiting monster, and some of the best talent that he has gotten has also decided to transfer away. Jahmyr Gibbs, the most notable, but certainly not the only one that he's seen. He tried to reboot the coaching staff. None of it really worked out. Geoff Collins out. Georgia Tech open. This is our third Power 5 job. It is September 26th, and we have 3 Power 5 jobs already open. So I think that we should bypass by the, we all do these radio hits or, the interview is like, number one, were you surprised? No, we were not surprised. We were not surprised by the timing. We were not surprised by the decision itself. So I guess, Danny, I'll throw it to you first. You are the new Georgia Tech athletic director. Before we start talking about candidates, what are the priorities? What do you think the vision is? Because school has to hire an athletic director. Athletic director's got to make a football coach hire. And we've got to take this once proud program and be able to find a way to make up a gap that has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger over the last 4 years.
It's a big undertaking. It's a big task, but I think this program can do more. I mean, I think that's the big, if you're the president, you say this is unacceptable. And all you have to do is look back at Paul Johnson, what he was able to do and say, and we all were more than patient with Geoff Collins. I think when I say all of us, I think all of us that, analyzed the game with boosters of Georgia Tech, fans of Georgia Tech, realized what an overhaul that was, going from a triple option attack to a more traditional attack. But after this much time, you should see progress. And that's the thing that I think is most frustrating. You didn't see any progress whatsoever. But I think you are in a talent-rich portion of the country where you've got to try to make inroads into the ownership that Georgia has had on the state. Now, good luck doing that. There are academic restrictions. You don't have unlimited purse strings that Georgia has. But how far away you fall in, Chip, is the best way. You got to cut into that gap at least, and to be competitive in that game and to be competitive in the ACC. So I think right now it's pretty clear that the standard isn't up to par, and you want to expect a lot more.
I'm interested to see where they go with this. Collins was obviously a failure. You could argue in some ways he might have been set up to be a failure, given that they were coming off the triple and they had a COVID year mixed in for recruiting. But he really did a pretty poor job overall. The offense was almost always worse than the defense, but the defense really was not very good. You're not really recruiting against UGA here. You're recruiting against Stanford, Northwestern, Notre Dame, and Vanderbilt, all who come in occasionally, some more than others, to these Atlanta private schools and pluck kids away. Those are the kids that you have to keep home if you want to win at Georgia Tech, because you need to get some diamonds in the rough, but you also need to occasionally get those really good kids who can get into your school. And this is the thing that Georgia Tech coaches complain about privately: stay eligible in your school. Now, the transfer portal has made this, to me, a worse job than the coaches I talk to think it is. Because let's say you're a kid like a Jahmyr Gibbs, right? And I'm not saying this is what happened, but if I'm another school, I'm going to go try to poach a kid who's really good at Georgia Tech going into year 3 and saying, hey, man, you got an NFL future, right? You can always go back to get your degree. This is that money year. Let's drop all this calculus stuff. Let's focus completely on football for that junior year so you can go pro early, right? And on the other side, as we talked about with some good academic schools like UVA, it is hard to get a lot of transfers into Georgia Tech because of the academics. So to me, I've downgraded this job. Everybody recruits more nationally now. I don't think being in Atlanta is as big of a deal as it once was. And I think the portal is a big time net negative for this program.
I wish there was a transfer portal when I was in high school, because then I would have gotten out of my calculus class senior year, because God, I hated calculus. This is like, I think you guys are hitting all the key points. This is not an easy job to win, to just step in and start winning. And Danny, like you were saying, like, yeah, there was a huge adjustment going from running a flex bone offense to what they wanted to be. They wanted to be more of a modern pro style kind of approach and play the same way everybody else plays, because I don't know, I guess they were embarrassed by the fact that they were winning games, but they were doing it with an offense that seemed outdated. But like you were saying, that takes a time to transition, but there were absolutely no signs of improvement in any real noticeable area watching this team over the last few years. And it's like, by the time you get to year 4, maybe you're not competing for a Coastal Division title, but you should be competing for a bowl game at the very minimum. And Georgia Tech seemed like it was miles away from that. So this isn't a shock at all. I think it's probably the right move for the long term. And it's crazy that we've had 3 Power 5 coaches fired before October, and none of them are Brian Harsin.
All right. The other thing that you have to figure out for Georgia Tech, are you broke? Why are you scheduling like we're about to do a special episode with Kent State today? Why are you scheduling like Kent State? Why are you playing road games at UCF and playing Ole Miss in the non-conference when you already play Georgia and your cross-divisional rival is Clemson? You're starting every year 0-2. Then you're going to play these crazy non-conference games? They did kind of the same stuff last year, right? So I'm asking the AD, whoever that's going to be, assuming that the AD's out as well.
I was going to say that's why no, it is. Like, okay. This is why we're cleaning house, because what does scheduling fall under? The athletic director. And my understanding of the situation is that, you say, are they broke? I think the answer is no. I think that the athletic director stood by Geoff Collins after last season and was like, this is my guy. Like, this is, we're going to stand by him. And as we see so often in college athletics, when the athletic director is like, nope, I stand by my hire, and then it tanks, it's like, all right, well, then you're out as well. This is, Ken Segura of the Atlantic Journal-Constitution. He's been on that beat forever. I always like to, we've got a very good 24/7 site as well. Everything that I've sensed is that there has been a desire already to stop this ridiculous scheduling, to stop, riding with Geoff Collins and putting up with his above the line depth chart and with all the gimmicks, and to be able to really start to take this a little bit more seriously. You mentioned a lot of the hurdles that do exist for Georgia Tech football, but that's why I think we're seeing them totally clean house, because you're right. They need to change their scheduling, and they need to try to put in a head coach that's going to be able to get this thing to work.
I mean, look at this future stuff they already have. Right? If you're a head coach taking that job, 2023 at Ole Miss, host Georgia. All right, that's 0-2 in the non-con already. And they host Bowling Green. They should be Bowling Green. 24, remember, they're in the ACC. So about every 4 or 5 years, they're playing Notre Dame. 24, they have Notre Dame and Georgia. If I'm taking that job, we are not playing anybody in the non-conference other than Georgia, or when it's absolutely mandated by the ACC to play the Irish, ever. I want 3 MAC teams or FCS teams. And I know your season ticket holders will hate it, but if you're Georgia Tech, 8 ACC games plus Georgia plus occasionally Notre Dame should be plenty of quality matchups. Making a bowl is important.
Well, too.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing Alabama in the non-conference coming up with a home and home. Yep. What are we doing?
Is that a true home and home? Wait.
It says 2030 Bama, 2031 at Bama. So
he's not playing consecutive road games against the Sun Belt. It's not like Georgia Tech's the only team in the ACC doing this dumbass stuff with its scheduling.
Georgia looked at Auburn and Tennessee and was like, that looks fun. Let's play Alabama and Georgia in the same season. Okay, now let's get to it. Chat's calling for it, and clearly it is one of the biggest and buzziest aspects of this job, because there is a figure in college football who is larger than life. There is a figure in Atlanta sports history who played for the Falcons. He played for the Braves, and he currently has a Jackson State team that ranks among the best at the FCS nationally, currently the pick to win the SWAC, and get to the Celebration Bowl with a chance to win that HBCU national championship. It is Deion Sanders. So Deion Sanders is the first name mentioned in Dennis Dodd's list of Georgia Tech coaching candidates. Is it the fact that it's Deion Sanders, the potential hot coaching candidate, and the Atlanta aspect to this? Do you think that given the unique challenges that Georgia Tech has, Deion's a good answer? Is this anything more than just like buzz? Oh, shoot. I didn't mean to do that. Buzz. Okay. Is there anything more about like a buzziness or a trendiness to this that makes you believe that we could be having an emergency podcast in early December where we are talking about Deion Sanders as the Georgia Tech head football coach?
I don't think so. You can't rule it out, but if I'm Georgia Tech, I'm not hiring Deion. And it's got nothing to do with Deion. I just don't think that Deion is the right coach for this program, because I think honestly, like what's if you hire Sanders, he's going to bring, like you said, buzz. Going to generate a lot of immediate attention. People will be paying attention to your program. You will get headlines, and you will probably land a few recruits early in the process because of it, because what Deion has done so far at Jackson State that has gotten him attention, it hasn't been getting to the Celebration Bowl or winning games. It has been the recruits that he's been able to flip from FBS schools and get them to come to an FCS school. So maybe you win a few recruiting battles early on that get some attention. But like Bud was saying, Georgia Tech is a different animal when it comes to recruiting, in that your pool of candidates is limited because of the academic requirements. So I don't know how well you will ever be able to recruit to Georgia Tech, no matter who the coach is. But I also think that even if you throw out the academic requirements, a mistake that a lot of schools often make, especially when they're struggling, is we need to get somebody in here who can recruit because we need to increase the talent level. And then you bring in a coach who has recruiting chops, but hasn't really shown the ability to build a program. I think Georgia Tech needs somebody who can build a program, because the program is in terrible shape. And the best way to convince good players to come to your school is to actually show them you're capable of winning games. So I don't think Sanders is a good fit for the Yellow Jackets in that aspect. If I'm Georgia Tech and the new AD, whoever that ends up being, the first name I am calling is Coastal Carolina's Jamie Chadwell, because I think that he has shown at Coastal he can build a program. And also, if you think back to what Georgia Tech's most recent success was under Paul Johnson running that flex bone, Jamie Chadwell's not running an option offense, but he's running an offense that is basically a modern triple option offense. It just has more passing aspects to it. And I think that you bring that offense to it, you can fit in players who might not be 5- and 4-star guys who can fit in there and still have success. And you can kind of do like what Tennessee has done with Josh Heupel, where maybe you're not a great team, but you're scoring a lot of points and you're having fun and the fans are happy and it's generating buzz. And then maybe like Tennessee is currently having, you're also winning more games than you're losing, and that things are going well. So I think Chadwell would make a ton of sense for Georgia Tech. He's number one on my board with a gap between him and anybody else at number 2.
You did just say Tennessee's not a great team, right?
I don't think it's a great team yet. I think it's a good team.
Fair.
It's third best team in the SEC, though.
Yeah. There's a difference, though, between great and good. There are very few great teams, but you can be good. And most programs sit there with the delusion that they can be great when they can't. Your goal should just be to be good.
I had a hard time making a list for Georgia Tech. Deion certainly is on the list, given the media figures who are connecting him to this job. Like he has to be on there. I don't know if it would work out. Some of that probably is about Coach Prime, but some of it is also about what sort of resources he's going to have to work with there. Right? Will they continue to have more degrees and whatnot that they can funnel kids into to keep them eligible? How do they deal with the transfer portal?
I mean, do you get Shador? You get Shador, right? And Shador hit the jump he's made from freshman to sophomore season.
Is that good though? I mean, he's playing better at that level against the FBS team he played though last year. I mean, it was not pretty, right?
You're the scout.
Bachmeier's in the portal.
What?
Hank Bachmeier's in the portal. You can go get him.
Well, I think that maybe that whole staff's going to be in the portal pretty soon.
Yeah, I was about to say we're putting Boise State on auto fade, but don't let that secret out just yet. Danny, Deion.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. Like, I don't think anything should surprise us. And as far as program building, I went back and looked, Tom, at Jackson State's schedule before he got there, and their records, they weren't very good. I mean, he definitely infuses a ton of life and energy in the program. And I actually think, this is watching some of the documentary stuff at Jackson State. I actually think he's a better coach than he gets credit for and a better disciplinarian than he gets credit for because of the flash, because he's known to be a brash, cocky player who talks a lot of smack, but he holds him to a high standard. I mean, he said some things this August, I think it was, when it came out, and he's like, I don't want you guys wearing tank tops. Like, he had all these dress code rules that probably would have had accusations of racism if it was at Iowa, but he's at Jackson State and it's Deion, so he can do it. But like, it's old school mentality that he actually learned a lot of at Florida State. I think he would have more success than people think. He told me, I interviewed him at the Super Bowl in 2019, I think it was. They had an SEC school lined up to take him. And it was an SEC West school that was coming off a disastrous hire from Clemson. And he said it was a deal that was in place and they just kind of panicked at the last second. Hey, you're too inexperienced. There are going to be more schools that come calling. Selfishly, when we were talking with Bud about this before, I hope he gets it or some other job so we can get taken off the Florida State table, at least for now, because I think we talked about this. I think it would be one massive distraction and a really complicated, situation if, Florida State was in a position, which they clearly aren't now, off to a great start. It seems like that conversation is nuts to even have. But 4 weeks ago, it was very much like, ooh, what happens if the season goes the wrong way? But I think it'll take some of that, just that chatter that takes place on message boards that's out there of, Deion coming back to Tallahassee. And then the other thing, too, is Georgia Tech upside. Like, can they be great? I mean, I was a senior in high school, I think. Maybe I was junior high school. We won a national championship. Like, this is a program. Granted, that's delusional now to think they could be that. But I do think 8 or 9 or 10 wins is more than reasonable. And I would say they can be better than Stanford, Vanderbilt, Northwestern. Are there academic standards that can they? And that would be my number one question if I'm
No,
Deion.
they're not as tough as Stanford.
But they do have challenges. And that's my number one question if I'm Deion or anybody else. How many players are you going to give me? How many guys are we going to get that we can get in and we're not going to have to listen to our academic standard? I need these guys. And I'm sure that's part of Deion's conversation. If he's even thinking about this schedule, is not only my son, Shador, can he get in? What about Travis Hunter and all these other guys? Because I guarantee you, if those players, or if it's Mike Zimmer as an analyst on the staff, do you think he went to Jackson State just to learn behind Deion? I think there's a bigger picture in play here that everybody involved is aware of. And if there's a good opportunity, I think Deion's going to take it.
The SEC school, Deion having that job and then not getting it is interesting, because I don't know if I buy the idea that they didn't hire him because of experience. Like he told you, because they hired a guy with an equal amount of coordinator and head coaching experience in Sam Pittman. Sam Pittman was an offensive line coach, right? Like, so I think it was more like Sam Pittman has this great staff lined up.
Right.
With Odom and potentially Bryles, we can bring this here. I'll be figurehead. I can recruit type thing. We have heard, though, that Hunter Yurosek, the AD at Arkansas, was very impressed in his interview.
With Sanders?
Yeah.
Interesting. Which Monken cousin would you want? Geoff or Todd? Todd's on Dennis's list, the Georgia offensive coordinator. Geoff obviously would be a return to because Paul Johnson came from Navy. You would be bringing the option back. And if you are,
wasn't that why they ran off Paul Johnson? Like, they were tired of the option, which makes
he is
no
passing
sense.
a lot more now, though. I think he's passing a lot more this year. If you want to go conspiracy, to showcase that he can
100%
get out of there.
Like, they are throwing the ball a lot more than they usually do at Army.
Oh, and 100%, that's what he's doing.
I would love to see it kind of along Tom's line of thinking is, use a lot of those concepts that people don't see and don't like, but throw in some wrinkles, put it in the shotgun, let a quarterback throw it that can, because you do have, like, clearly at Army, you have limitations of the type of athlete you're going to get. And some of the quarterback play there has just been, it's an athlete playing quarterback. You get somebody who can actually play quarterback, then you can throw it. And you don't have to throw it 40, 50 times a game. You just have to throw it 20, 25. And all of a sudden, that offense becomes really complicated to shut down.
What's the best? What is the ceiling, the best possible hire that you could imagine for Georgia Tech?
Jamie Chadwell.
Chadwell?
Why not? Isn't he the
somebody in the chat said Kirby's going to get bored and just want the challenge. Kirby's like, yeah, I'll go take it. What do you think?
I think of coaches that they could reasonably get. It's Chadwell.
What about Lance Leipold? That was an interesting one. Will just dropped in the chat.
Kansas for Georgia Tech. You don't leave. I mean, I understand that
Yeah, I
Kansas
don't think
is
so
on
either.
the pecking order, but like if Lance Leipold leaves Kansas, it's going to be for a program that he feels like can win conference titles and get to the playoff. I don't think anybody looks at Georgia Tech that way.
If you were power ranking the 3 Power 5 jobs that are open, is it Nebraska 1, then Georgia Tech, then sexy Iowa? Or is it
No, it's
No,
Arizona State.
Yeah.
Over Georgia Tech, not over Nebraska.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I'm not saying it now, but I think there's a case to be made that 10, 15 years from now, Arizona State's a better job than Nebraska.
Do they
buy
get
that.
drafted into the Super League if we think 2 big Super Leagues are coming?
I think that they are desired by the Big 12 right now, and the Pac-12 very much wants to keep them. So if we see movement there, they're going to go to one of the remaining power conferences. I don't think they're Big 10 or SEC, but I'm just saying, if like you've talked about it on the show, like with the population demographics of people leaving California for the state, you look at Nebraska right now, that's not happening there. So I think that, down the line, Arizona State might be a much better job than Nebraska. The key difference will be if Nebraska's the money it's getting from the Big 10 will probably hold it off for a while, though.
We agree Georgia Tech will go offense, though, right? Or at least figurehead who agrees to bring in an exciting offense or a unique offense.
I
if
think
it's a
You
defense?
can't do this again with the ticket sales.
No, if it's defensive, then it's got to be somebody with previous head coaching experience who's also a good recruiter.
Right, yeah.
Charlie Strong.
Who is floating?
You'd be excited if you're a Georgia Tech fan and you hired
No.
Charlie Strong.
Listen, Charlie Strong has about the same record as Steve Sarkisian.
I wouldn't be excited if we hired Steve Sarkisian.
Mhm.
I think Sarkisian has the upside,
Later.
but I mean, Charlie Strong without Teddy Bridgewater as a head coach,
Not great.
terrible.
Yeah.
Right. He captained South Florida with Willie's players, and Willie had built up a really nice roster at USF before things started to go south with him as a head coach. 10-2. Other than that, Texas never had a winning season. Louisville without Bridgewater, not good.
What
Galaxy brain thinking here. If you've got recruiting restrictions, then you're not losing recruiting battles. Dan Mullen, this is the job for you.
I actually thought about this. Now he lives in Atlanta now.
Mm.
Like that would be he's very, very good at scheme, I think, but he's also very good on TV, man. If you guys watch Dan Mullen, like ESPN hit on one there. That's and on audio too. Like when he can just cut loose and he's not limited to 10 seconds for a little TV snippet. Maybe he doesn't want to coach. He's enjoying doing wakeboarding quite a bit, it appears, via Twitter and Instagram. But that's where he's living right now. I could see it.
Any other names?
Somebody else mentioned it in the chat too.
He would
What
win.
about Bronco Mendenhall. Is that Virginia, which faced kind of a similar situation as far as who you can recruit? He's familiar in the ACC.
He's got a podcast right now with our old colleague, Brian Fisher. And the very first episode was Bronco Mendenhall talking about how much of a healthier mindset he's in, not being a college football coach. If he just automatically moved past that and took the Georgia Tech job, that would be a surprise.
See how he feels in November.
That would be a big change in tone.
Here's one from producer Jordan in the chat. I think is interesting. What about Jeff Levy?
I think him to Arizona State might make, and if we're talking about what jobs are better, I think if I'm him, I'm going to Arizona State all day long over Georgia Tech.
Do you think Arizona State will go coordinator? Because I kind of feel like they need somebody with head coaching experience, with some like head coaching chops at the college level to come in there, given how much of a mess that place is. But if they went coordinator, I could totally see it, Danny.
I think Levy would be a good hire for either.
Lot to, again, it's September 26th. They're also firing their athletic director. Long way to go. Total upheaval at Georgia Tech. We will continue to keep you up to date on all the latest from that coaching search. Okay. So we used to have a segment on Mondays called AP versus coaches. It was a good way for us to react to the new AP Top 25 poll, coaches poll, the new college football rankings. I think it's time, like so many things in this show in life, that we evolve and that we take things to the next level. So, gentlemen, if it's okay with you, I would like to introduce a new segment that I'm calling Poll Assassin.
Okay. Yes, I love it.
Inspired by.
Do we have a header for this, or do we have a photo for this for the YouTube segment? Please tell me Jordan has one mocked up.
What are those cookies called? kind of monkey is it? Like
the monkey attacking the AP poll?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Like, Jordan, get to work on this during the show.
You need the monkey attacking the AP poll. So yeah, inspired by Gary Parrish's poll attacks on the college basketball side of things, and as we approach the 1-year anniversary of the monkey allegedly. Wait, no, there's no allegedly. Is there still an ongoing court case about the monkey biting the kid during trick or treating?
It happened.
It happened. Okay. So as we are coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the pole assassin there in Austin, Texas, we will begin using this time to hold the polls accountable for their actions, because there's some preposterous behavior. And I think it fits better with sort of where we are at as a group and where the rankings have been recently. So, Tom,
how'd I know?
You started, you laid it out there. You said, look, here are all the reasons why Kansas needs to be ranked. Especially, I mean, like, we don't even need to nitpick all of these other teams, though you made a great case on Twitter about the number 14 team in the country and what the blind resume test would turn out right there. I mean, what'd you make of the Jayhawks falling just short of the top 25 in the AP poll, and even a little further from the picture in the coaches poll as well?
I don't want to attack the voters themselves, because I understand that you have to have your ballot in by a deadline on Sunday morning. And by the time you're done with everything you have to do for your job on Saturday night, it's really difficult to take in the entire landscape of college football to come up with a comprehensive top 25 based on logic and what you're actually seeing. Instead, the whole, kind of slider mentality where team move up, team move down, team move out, who had big win, replace them with the gap. I understand it, but there is absolutely no way in hell Kansas should not be ranked, considering the other teams that are ranked and where they are ranked. I mentioned this on the show. I'll go a little deeper. I used Ole Miss as an example on the show Saturday night, but I've got a much better comparison case here. Kansas's win over Duke, they now have 2 wins over Power 5 teams, and they have 2 road wins. And I asked you guys on the show Saturday night how many other 4-0 teams could match that on their resume. Well, I looked it up. I've got the answer. Of the 21 undefeated teams remaining, only 12, including Kansas, have 2 wins against Power 5 opponents. Of those 12 teams, only 3 can also say they have 2 road wins: Kansas, USC, and Penn State. USC is ranked number 6 this week. It started in the preseason at number 14. It has moved up every week because it wins games, and that's what happens when you win games. Penn State wasn't ranked. Penn State is 4-0. Penn State is number 11. Penn State has pretty much an equivalent resume to Kansas. Kansas is not ranked. So what's the difference between Penn State and Kansas that gets Penn State up to number 11 and Kansas can't crack the top 25? I wonder why that is. Is it because one is in the Big 10 and is supposed to be good, whereas the other is in the Big 12 and nobody expected it to be good, so nobody pays any attention to the fact that how it's playing? So, hey, why rank it? It's Kansas. It can't be that good. It's crap. That's what it is. Kansas is one of the 25 best teams in the country right now, and the fact that it's not ranked just shows the flaws in the AP voter system.
I mean, Oklahoma has no quality wins.
No, and that's the other thing. Like, Oklahoma's ranked and Kansas State isn't.
Kansas State's at 25.
Okay, they're 25, but
they
still.
shouldn't. Right.
Yeah.
Isn't this where you kind of go to, it's not just who you play and if you win, but also how do you look? And Kansas has looked good. They should be ranked. I agree with Tom. I think Penn State is too low at 11, to be honest, given their level of dominance so far. Like, I think Penn State's the top 4 team in the country right now. So, I mean, to me, maybe it's a little high, but I think they're definitely better than everybody listed 5 through 9. Because of how dominant they have been, So from that standpoint, I would push back on the Penn State example.
No, I'm not saying,
but Kansas,
saying,
resume and quality of team right now has played better.
Yeah, I'm just saying
in front of them.
Penn State and Kansas have similar resumes, and one of them is ranked 11th. Another one of them didn't even appear on the majority of ballots. Makes no damn sense, unless it's just. Okay, they were here this week. I'm going to move them up. What's a team that I know that had a good game this week? Okay, I'll put them in.
We are also here in week 4, and we're already suffering from quality loss disease as Pitt is able to hang on in the top 25 ahead of Kansas State, Kansas, Cincinnati, and
Florida. Florida's 29th, and it's 2-2. Florida's
that one's silly.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like if Kansas is, if Florida, whatever. I'm just gonna get all worked up here.
Do you realize I love this college poll tracker? Sam McEwen, I like calling him out, of the Omaha world record, has Florida ranked 12th, 13th. He still has them 13th.
Yep.
Quality loss disease.
Sam's been too down Nebraska coaching candidates to have time to actually watch the other games.
Maybe so. Maybe we'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that's what it is. I think, I can't help myself to accuse SEC bias, but it really is. And Tom, you hit it. Brand bias. There's absolutely a brand bias towards teams that have historically been good and have recognizable helmets and recognizable coaches and history and tradition, where if you don't, like Kansas, like James Madison, like some of these other schools, that you have to do twice as much to get half the credit. And it's ridiculous. And here's where it bothers me the most, because I found myself, mixing it up some with some SEC fans on some of the, I posted the resume between Kentucky's resume and Kansas's resume. And of course, what comes back is, we got a road win against a top 25 opponent. And they might even put top 15 because it was Florida. Texas A&M fans, they're coming at me today there because I called them out. They're saying, we have 2 top 25 wins. You think Miami is still a top 25 team? Well, yeah, they had a ranking in front of them. We beat them. That's the problem with the whole system, is that fans, and I think a lot of writers and people that cover the game, recognize those wins using a top 25 metric, which, as we point out every single week, is severely flawed. So that, let's say, who does Kansas play this week?
I believe Iowa State.
Yeah, so let's say Iowa State beats Kansas. Like, they won't get as much credit for a win because loss. It's not a top 25. It's not top 25 win. It's just the absurdity.
Iowa State, they'll say, well, Iowa State's clearly not that good.
Exactly. Yeah, they're down this year. They're no good. Would you guys be in favor of using, I don't want to say computer, but like a point system? Yeah. Like, hey, and it combines Power 5 teams, what you get, X amount of points for a Power 5 win. You get X times a half for a Power 5 win on the road. Group of 5 wins, you get this one. Group of 5 on the road, you get this. FCS, you get 0 or whatever you want to do it. And just put together a system that and the combined record. Somehow you'd put the records, over 500. You'd have a metric in there so that you'd weight the schedules and be able to come up with a better system than we have now.
Do you know who would love that?
Who?
Vanderbilt, Northwestern, Colorado, all of these P5 teams who would look at the metric and realize, oh my gosh, we're going to get like $5 million to play a non-conference game because teams will be able to game this system that they can pay us a little bit extra, get an automatic win, and instead of playing like I can't use Boise anymore, Fresno, right?
Well, that's what Northern Illinois thought. How did that work out?
Yeah.
Hey, don't disrespect Northern Illinois. That's one of Kentucky's best wins, and Kentucky's a top 10 team.
Tom, I can one up
the most egregious.
Who almost and was in a dogfight with Northern Illinois too.
Guys, Tom Murphy,
270 yards at Florida, man. Got to respect it. NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
Tom Murphy of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. This is his ballot from the following week. I will only list the top 5. Georgia, 1. Ohio State, 2. Alabama, 3. Michigan, 4. And the Kentucky Wildcats at number 5.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom is a playoff voter. Yes. Tom Murphy, not Tom Fornelli.
So Kentucky as high as 5. I shout out to Reddit CFB. You always put together a graphic with all the logos that makes it very easy to spot the logos that stand out. And that big blue UNK at number 5, that is the high point for a Wildcats team that finished at number 7, 4-0 with its best win against a Florida team that is currently unranked.
Tom also has 7 SEC teams in his top 16.
I also think too, there's very much dislike, I think, towards Clemson. Like, we've talked a lot about Clemson's struggles and where they are.
I haven't noticed that based on today's Twitter interactions at all.
But Clemson should be above Michigan if you went solely off resume.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, and they're not getting – so that's another one where the ACC, the perception of the ACC hurts it. It's Wake Forest. Wake Forest, isn't that? That was a tough environment to go into against a great quarterback, a great offensive scheme. Now the defense has concerns with Clemson, which we're talking about. But that's not seen as a good quality win, and I think it absolutely should be for the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, I do the playoff projection at the end of the Monday after every week based on what I think the committee would do this week. And yeah, I put Clemson at number 4. I think they would put them ahead of Michigan right now.
Wait, you'd put them behind? Wait, no,
I
ahead
think the
of
committee
Michigan.
would have them above.
Yeah, I had it was Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Clemson was what I projected the college football playoff to do this week if it put out rankings, which it doesn't yet, but I'm sure it will someday.
And don't you think Ohio State should be number 2 based on resume and how they've looked? Especially with Notre Dame, House and North Carolina, the way they did, like that win looks a little bit better.
But I think you can make an argument that Alabama has more impressive win with the Texas win than any that Ohio State has. Because I don't think
depends on
could have, should have lost if the officials called it right.
But Danny's using the term resume, I think, only meaning who you beat, not really considering how much they beat them by, which is part of your resume too. If you want to go just on like strength of record, which is a metric, I think that like what Danny's saying, resume is more aligning closely to how I think of strength of record, where it's just who did you beat, not really taking into consideration how did you look. I think there's anti-Clemson bias because there's carryover from last year when we saw their offense look poor, and they did not look in sync on the national TV game Sunday night against Georgia Tech. Like, how many people have watched Clemson since the Georgia Tech game? So that's probably still their impression. We'll see what they think this weekend in the game played in a hurricane.
Can I just bring up one more thing about the poll assassin here?
Yeah.
Just something, it's not really something I want to attack. It's just something that very much amuses me.
Well, this is what we're going to poll assassin's just too good of a name. We'll just use listen, we're still going to call this college football rankings, AP top 25 poll reaction scores and results in the headline, whatever we need to call it. But
no, poll assassin is 1,000 times better.
Poll assassin is what we, those of us in on it will be calling it. So yes, go ahead, Tom.
I just wanted to mention last week, Tulane beat Kansas State. Did not appear on a single AP ballot. This week, Tulane lost to Southern Miss, but Kansas State beat Oklahoma. Tulane got a vote from David Briggs, who put them at number 23 after it lost to Southern Miss when he didn't rank it the week before.
That was a late comeback. There was I think a pick 6 in that game. I can see going to bed, having your thing already done and turn that in. I'll give David the benefit of the doubt. It has to be, right?
I will too. But again, that goes to my flaw of the fact that they have to have their ballots in so early. So many of these voters are doing this before the day's games have finished. I don't know if they can, but if I'm the AP, I'm the coach's poll, I'm pushing the deadline until Sunday night, and I'm just releasing the poll on Monday morning. Because, why are you releasing a poll on Sunday morning right before NFL kickoff anyway?
Well, because it comes out early enough to where the aggregators get it and it hits the news wire, and like you get a decent little pop in like the 90 minutes before the NFL kicks off. If you do it Sunday night, people are going to bed, they're getting ready for work tomorrow, they're catching up on NFL games.
But experiment with, see what kind of pop you get on Monday morning instead.
That would be one less call for an AP poll reaction video on Sunday at 2:15. Would love that. So team Monday release. Monday release.
How much do you think the vote? Oh, go ahead. I don't want to bog us down. How much do you think the voters could defend their picks? Like, I had Florida at 13, and here's why.
I think you can defend any opinion for the most part.
Yeah. That was Ralph. Ralph Russo is a good guy. He's an AP, he's an AP writer.
I did his podcast this morning.
Yeah, I think he was just kind of pointing out what everyone is saying is, these are all opinions and mine could be different than yours, which I get, but some of them are so off base. Oh, yeah. I feel like they should have to explain themselves at least, as opposed to, I don't know, maybe you cover them in your region or, for what, I don't know. I think some of them should have to defend.
It's my ballot. End of conversation. Yeah. So ridiculous. Anyway, but it's one of the things that makes the sport so great, the arguments. Coming up on the other side, we need to give some time to some of the games who weren't able to hit in the Instant Reaction Podcast, as well as some of the details that we got as we scanned back over everything that happened. It's Upon Further Review, and it's next.
You can't stop. You can't stop. You can't stop. You can't stop my come on.
Yeah. I'll battle anybody right now. I'm the answer to the throne like the bond. That's the path that I'm on. I'm on the come up. We on the come up. This is the come up. Hey.
It is not just a song, it is a statement.
Come up. Hey.
Boom. You got it, didn't you?
I'm on the come up. This is the come up.
Rated PG-13. Now streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, Upon Further Review, I think is a good chance for us to also spin it forward based not just on the way that the games went down, but also what's ahead. I saw in the chat, we want to talk a little Miami. We want to talk a little Texas. I would add maybe Michigan State to this conversation. We've got some teams that have got a couple losses where I think it's interesting to sort of recenter our focus and recenter our expectations of what's ahead for this group. Where do y'all want to start?
Should we call it buyer's remorse?
It's top 20 teams with 2 losses after week 4.
Yeah. And week 4 after they either just paid a coach a tremendous amount of money off an extension that might have been given too early, or you paid somebody a boatload of money to take them in from a different school, or you paid guys through the transfer portal to come in and play. There's a bunch of reasons you could look at it for having buyer's remorse. I'll go wherever you guys want to start.
You got it. Where do you want to go?
Let's go to Miami, because I do think benching Tyler Van Dyke was one of those, how bad is this going to get? And that's the one thing I was very curious to see how this would all go, especially when they were looking for an offensive coordinator. Who are they going to bring in? I was concerned about Tyler Van Dyke because he flourished last year, and he was everybody's looking at him as a potential top 5 pick, and he put up incredible numbers. What were they? 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, I think, somewhere around that. An impressive year. Looks like a surefire lock. And then when they brought in Gaddis, whatever number it was, they will tell you, they will not, Miami fans will not admit that there might have been a search that went through a couple guys that maybe didn't want the job. But when they hired Josh Gaddis, I was wondering about fit for the system, newer system, learning, all over again. And I think if you're Miami, you worry about losing Tyler Van Dyke, who's an incredibly talented player. But if you start messing with a quarterback psyche, you start pulling him out of games, if you bench him, and by the way, the backup is pretty good in Garcia, like this thing could change in a hurry. And then the other thing, and I've felt this firsthand as a Florida State guy, is when there's so much excitement and there's so much energy and positivity around a hire and new guys coming in and just infusion of life, that you're just expecting, man, we're going to be 9-10 win team all day long. And then when it goes against you, how does the team respond? And I'm very curious to see what Miami does from this point forward. Do they keep it on the rails? Does it keep going? Or does a team, because I don't want to say they shut it down. They clearly did not show up in that game and they got jumped all over, but this isn't the days. And trust me, again, as a Florida State guy, you can't just kind of go through the motions and show up and be like, well, we'll show up and we'll win. Teams will beat you now. And I think it's something to watch out for, because you don't want to lose all that momentum. Texas last year is a good example. Sark comes in, he's going to turn around this offense. And then, you lose to Kansas and you're 5-7. And then you're salvaged by getting Arch Manning, it's a huge recruiting class. I think it's something to keep an eye on for Miami. Like the honeymoon is over, clearly.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Well, so
where
does it?
Tyler Van Dyke should do is, if Jake Garcia is going to be the guy going forward, should support Jake, should support the team. He should also
go to Illinois
portal and go to Illinois in an offense that will utilize him correctly and know how to get the best out of him and improve his draft stock. So Tyler, that's what you should do. Be a good Kane and then start shopping for Illini gear.
I'm not going to give other shows our ideas, so I'm not going to say what I want to say about this, but we have a very fun show coming. Not the Kent State one that we're going to record in a little bit. But I mean, guys, what quarterback has looked good under Mario Cristobal's head coaching tenure? I mean, Herbert, people blamed Arroyo, right? Arroyo can't coach offense.
UNLV, that's the guy who couldn't coach Justin Herbert.
UNLV is dropping 50 burgers. I'm just saying, maybe there's something to the idea Like, I'm not saying Mario's Muschamp. I don't think he is. I think he will do well there. Like, I want to be clear about that. Miami fans, we poke fun at you because you don't support your team unless it's against a really, really good opponent because you're in an international city with a pro atmosphere, all this other stuff, blah, blah, blah. He has backing. They will get recruits, and he knows how to run a program. It's not clear that he knows how to run an elite offense. Through 11 seasons, in fact, I think the evidence says that he has not done so. And we'll see if they can. But they'll eventually be physical. They'll run the ball well. They'll play good defense. They'll probably hit on QB. But so far, last year's Miami team beats this year's Miami team.
Oh, with
they've taken a step back under Mario.
Yeah, when you've got Rambo, when you've got
Harley,
Rhett Lashley as your offensive coordinator and play caller. I think that I could buy into that. All right, let's turn it to Texas, and I like where Bud started with the conversation in the group chat over the weekend. But is Texas going to be a bowl team in 2022?
It's interesting because if you look at Bill Connolly's post-game win probability, Texas was 97% to win that game. So Texas Tech got a lot of breaks and should celebrate their win, right? They're not going to give it back. Looking into the stats here, Texas did have some very inopportune, turnovers and things that they moved the ball pretty well throughout the day. Their defense was not terrible. I mean, they gave up 479 yards, but it was on 100 plays. So Texas Tech was really, really good 3rd and 4th down. I'm a little bit less worried about Texas.
They
were 6 of 8 on 4th down.
Yep.
That's just not really super repeatable. I mean, you're 7 of 20 on 3rd down. All of a sudden, you go 6 of 8 on 4th. That's not real repeatable skill. Kind of like Florida, Tennessee, right? That game, if they play it again tomorrow, I think Tennessee wins by 17 plus. But credit to Texas Tech for doing what they did on 4th down. I'm just not as worried about Texas as I was before I rewatched them this morning. Because Tom in the group chat was like, they're definitely making a bowl unless something, as long as Ewers comes back.
As long as Ewers is healthy, yeah.
Yeah. And you're right.
He's coming back too. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll make a bowl, but I think they get 7 wins.
I think they could still get 8 as long as Ewers stays healthy. I mean, I think offensively they're very talented. I think defensively they're not where you need to be to really compete for conference titles yet, which is their goal ultimately. But I think they're better than they were last year, which is a significant step forward. Like, I think it's a good team, and I think it's getting better. And I think if Ewers is healthy, they're probably the 3rd or 4th best team in the Big 12.
Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Kansas, and Baylor all still left on the schedule. It's going to get awfully tricky.
But the Big 12 is wacky. I think there's a lot of teams that play on a level playing field, including Texas on that playing field. But I think Quinn Ewers, here's the thing that's crazy. I think he's incredible, but we really didn't see him that much.
No, but I was sold on it.
I know, I was too. But all right, if he's that version all year long, then they could get 8 wins and they'll be fine. But I think they're probably 7 wins when it all settles.
It's funny to me because you and I were both skeptical.
Yeah.
It was all off season. I don't know, man. You see these videos, it's like the mechanics are all messed up. What's he gonna do against real teams? And then we both see him for 5 minutes against Alabama. We're both like, we're on board. He's great.
That's Patrick Mahomes Jr.
I want to be his agent.
There is only one team in the Big Ten that has a worse record than Michigan State right now, and it is Nebraska. Now, this is is it panic time, or did you just lose to 2 really good teams in Washington and Minnesota in back-to-back weeks? Because you still have Ohio State, you still have Michigan, you still have Penn State, you still have the mighty Illinois. You still got some tough games left on the schedule, and now you've got a very interesting one going to College Park to play a Maryland team that was frisky against those Wolverines. What's it looking like for Mel Tucker and the Spartans coming off that year where they come into this season, top 15, top 20 style team? You look the part more or less in back-to-back wins against MAC teams. And again, now we're sitting here with a 2-2 record. Nebraska, the only team in the Big Ten with a worst record. I guess Northwestern too. Did I miss Northwestern? Yeah, Northwestern's 1-3. So Northwestern and Nebraska, the only teams with a worse record than Michigan State right now. So what does the future look like for Sparty? Is this just a matter of playing 2 really good teams in a row? Or do you think that there's some big issues as we start to project moving forward?
I think there are issues because, like you say, they played two really good teams in a row. Okay, well, Michigan State's supposed to be one of the really good teams in the Big Ten, and you're losing them, by 11 on the road at Washington, and then you lose at home to Minnesota by 27. Like, I could understand if you lose at home to Minnesota, fine, because I do think Minnesota's a good team, but you lose by 27, there are problems. And I think that if you look at what's going on, this is a team that it's the same problems they faced last year. They just aren't having the same kind of look offensively that they dealt with. They can't stop the pass. Like, if you look at their EPA per drop back, they rank 98th nationally. Now, maybe that's not, quote, dead ass last, but it is still a serious problem that they're dealing with. And I don't know that there is an easy fix. And if you look at their schedule, they've got a road game against Maryland coming up. What does Maryland do well?
Throw the ball.
After that, they've got a home game against Ohio State. What does Ohio State do well?
Throw the ball.
We're looking at a team that by the time they play Wisconsin in mid-October, they could be 2-4. Like, if Michigan State loses to Maryland this weekend, it will not be a surprise to me because that Maryland team that I saw playing Michigan last week is much better than I thought. Like, they played well. They have a good offensive line. They have a solid defense. They have great corners from what I've seen so far. They match up really well with a lot of teams. Like, I'm looking at the Big Ten East right now, and I think the three best teams are Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. I think Maryland is the fourth best team in that division.
Yeah, we'll know a lot more about Sparty after this week, after the game against the Terps. But I tell you, losing to two good teams is one thing, but the way you lose at home is another one. They got outrushed 240-38. That to me is an effort thing, and that becomes you're getting pushed around and like bullied a little bit. That doesn't seem to me like a Mel Tucker team. So that would be a cause for concern. Like, where was this? And that was something I actually noticed against, I was in studio on Friday night with a Boise State UTEP team. That's when we came on after they lost to the Miners. And I was like, this is a sign that a team is not responding to the coach. Now that's clearly two different programs and there are different situations, but if you start seeing them get pushed around, that's a major cause for concern. The other thing too is Mel Tucker built last year's team through the transfer portal. I think that's it's not a sure thing by any means. And I think we're seeing that because he tried to do it again, and last year was Kenneth Walker. This year it's Jalen Berger trying to, tote the rock for them. And I think sometimes you might catch magic, but more times than not, it's going to take longer to develop continuity, to get guys up to speed in the system. And I don't want to trash all transfers, but sometimes you get guys that might not just been good enough. And or they didn't like adversity and they wanted, like, that's why I get why Dabo is anti-transfer portal, and I have evolved in my views of the transfer portal. I definitely think there are instances where absolutely you should go. You guys are in the simulation right there, by the way. That was really weird. That was perfectly synced up. I think like there is something to that, and there are going to be risks that you're going to have to take in the portal. Sometimes it'll hit, sometimes it won't.
So they will hit a stretch in November where they get Illinois, Rutgers, Indiana, right?
Pivotal.
Yeah.
They should win those, right?
Run it. Yep.
But where's the mindset of that team? I think it's going to be really interesting to see in a tough challenge for Mel Tucker. Tom, you got anything else you want to spotlight in a pun further review before we get out of here?
Yeah, we were watching USC Oregon State kind of while we were doing the reaction show on Saturday. So I watched it since. I have, like, USC's offense is good. I still have absolutely no idea what to make of that defense. Like, it's not bad, but it's not good. And, like Danny was calling Arizona State, what, sexy Iowa?
Yeah.
I think USC is Instagram model Iowa.
What?
In that, like, it looks really good, but you're not sure that it actually offers anything because, like, they have forced, again, USC leads the nation in turnover margin. I can't remember how many total it is, but they've got like 14 turnovers and they haven't turned the ball over once themselves. But the better way to look at it is USC has forced a turnover on 33% of their defensive possessions. Not sustainable. Like, Iowa has never even approached those numbers. So USC is relying a little too much on turning the ball over and on from a down-to-down basis. Like, if you look, it's success rate. Like, that's one thing I saw. Like, they played well against Oregon State in that they didn't let Oregon State score, which is the name of the game. But from like a play-by-play, down-by-down basis, I didn't think they were that outstanding. I think they just kind of bowed up or turned the ball over at the right times because success rate, they rank 101st nationally, but points per drive, they rank 61st. If you look at, red zone scores per drive, they rank 43rd. So it's like, it's a lot of weird numbers, and I'm not sure what to make of what this USC defense actually is. And it's going to be really interesting as they get into the heart of their Pac-12 schedule when they have to start playing some of the better teams in the Pac-12. Like, I have no question that they're going to score points. It's just when the turnovers stop, and someday, it might not be every week, but there's going to be a Saturday where they're not going to force a turnover. And maybe their offense, because we've seen Caleb Williams turn the ball over a few times himself back at Oklahoma. What happens in those games? I need to find out, because again, it's like I watched it. It's like from down to down, I see a lot of flaws, but overall it's been good.
I'm going to throw one last one out here. Parker, Stats War on Twitter, puts together a graphic I like a lot using net success rate, your success rate on offense, success rate on defense. And he calls the chart, did we really get beat that bad? Using net success rate as a great example of this. So the number one most lopsided defeat was Western Kentucky over FIU, 73-0. Not surprising. Number two was LSU over New Mexico. Number three was NC State over UConn. Number four was Notre Dame over North Carolina.
Yep.
And North Carolina just might be tucking themselves into bed with 30 points on the board. But in terms of being able to get the yards that you needed to be successful on a down-to-down basis and limit Notre Dame from being pushed around, your loss to Notre Dame was as bad as NC State beating UConn and on the same level as Alabama beating Vandy. So while the final margin might have said that that was close, at least through the lens of net success rate, Notre Dame's win over North Carolina was as lopsided as Alabama's win over Vandy or NC State's win over UConn. And I think that is both a credit to Notre Dame, but also a cold shower for North Carolina as the Tar Heels begin to look forward.
Yeah, the Tar Heels are 3-1 because they have a very good quarterback, but the Tar Heels are not a good football team.
No. Tough times ahead because there's like a bunch of no-win situations. Virginia Tech's coming to town. It's either really bad or it's like, oh, it was just Virginia Tech. Then Miami. I don't know. Interesting couple weeks ahead for the Tar Heels as they've got to figure out exactly what it's going to look like trying to level themselves out after a very disappointing defeat at the hands of the Fighting Irish. Anything else?
No, other than Illinois, by the way, is number one in defensive success rate nationally, and they're number 4 in my chaos rate. So we don't talk enough about Illinois on this podcast. They're really good.
Illinois, Wisconsin under. Principal.
No.
Well, another play?
Just saying, I think Illinois might score points on this Wisconsin defense.
You can follow him on Twitter at Tom Vernelli. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you.